Hello everyone, today we're going to be reading The Wild Robot Escape. Since I don't have the first book because I already read it, but that was the time I did have my YouTube channel on. But today we're reading The Wild Robot Escape. Our second book, which just came out, is The Wild Robot Protects. So let's get reading. Okay, we're going to start reading. So The Wild Robot Escapes. The New York Times bestseller by Peter Brown. The Wild Robot Escapes. Chapter 1. The City. Our story begins in a city, with buildings and streets and bridges and parks. Humans were strolling, automobiles were driving, airships were flying. Robots were hard at work. Weaving through the city streets was a delivery truck. The truck knew where to go and how to get there, all by itself. It pulled up to a construction site and automatically unloaded some crates. A few more turns and it unloaded more crates down the docks. The truck zigged and zagged across the city, delivering crates as it went, and then it merged onto a highway. Cars and buses and trucks were cruising along the highway together. But as the delivery truck continued, the traffic became lighter, the buildings became smaller, and the landscape became greener. With nothing but open road ahead, the truck accelerated to its top speed. The landscape outside was now just a green blur, occasionally broken by a flicker of gray as a town flew past. On and on, the delivery truck went racing over long bridges, shooting through mountain tunnels, gliding down straight stretches of highway until it started to slow. It drifted from the fast lane to the exit lane, and then it rolled down a ramp and to a farm country. The clouds of dust billowed up behind the truck as it drove past fields and fences. In the hazy distance, enormous barns loomed above the plains. The air was thick with the smells of oil, of soil and livestock. Robot crews methodically worked the crops and fed the animals and operated the massive farm machines. A hill gradually climbed into the view. The hill was crowned with trees and white buildings. Another farm, but this one was smaller and shadier than the rest. Out front was a crooked sign that said Hilltop Farm. Wheels crunched on gravels as the delivery truck rolled onto the driveway and up on the top of the hill. Who thinks maybe one of the robots will get there? It stopped beside the front porch of the farmhouse and dropped its last crate to the ground. Then the truck drove away. So I think that's where the robots are going, also to the Hilltop Farm. Reader, can you guess what was tightly packed inside that crate? If you guessed a robot, you're correct. Well, if you're correct, you guessed the robot. There was no ordinary robot. It was Rosamund 7134. That is this robot. She was in the old book. She was in the last book, The Wild Robot only, nothing else. She got crashed by a ship and blah blah. Well, you can see me read sometime The Wild Robot. So, okay. You might remember her old life on a remote wild island. Well, Rosa's new life was just about to begin. Woof, woof, woof! Inside the farmhouse, a dog was barking and scraping at the front door. When the door finally opened, the dog scurried out and bounced down the porch steps, and then a man appeared. The man walked with a limp and slowly made his way down the crate, where his dog was sniffing around. He unlatched the top of the crate and it swung open on its hinges. Packing foam was tossed aside. Restraining cords were unfastened. And then there was Rosamund 7134. Her lifeless body sparkled in the late day sun. The man reached down and pressed the important little button on the back of the robot's head. Click. You might see, she might turn on. The robot's computer brain booted up, and her programs began coming online. Then she automatically stepped out of her crate and started to speak. Hello, I am Roz of Unit 7134, but you may call me Roz. While my robotic systems are activating, I will tell you about myself. Once fully activated, I will be able to move and communicate and learn. Simply give me a task and I will complete it. Over time, I will find better ways of completing my tasks. I will become a better robot. When I am not needed, I will stay out of the way and keep myself in good working order. Thank you for your time. Now I am fully activated. Chapter 4, The Family. Welcome to Hilltop Farm, Roz. My name is Mr. Sharif. You belong to me now. Roz studied the man with her softly glowing eyes, and in a robotic voice she said, Hello, Mr. Sharif. This old fella here is Oscar. Mr. Sharif scratched his dog's head. You won't see much of him. Oscar spends most of his time sleeping in the house. Hello, Oscar, said the robot. A goofy grin stretched across the dog's face, and he let out a happy yelp. Mr. Sharif pulled a small computer from his pocket. He taped the screen and brought up a map of Hilltop Farm. There you are, Roz, he said as the robot's electronic signal appeared on the map. You'll be working all over this farm. And now that you're in the system, I can always see where you are. What would you like me to do? Said Roz. Sorry. You can start by putting your crate in the garage over there. I'll hold on to it, in case I ever have to send you back to the factory. Clearly, Roz was designed to take orders, because her body automatically did as it was told. She stuffed the packing materials into her crate and carried it into the garage. When Roz returned, Mr. Sharif was watching a school bus wending along the country road. Oscar barked and dashed off as the bus came to stop at the bottom of the driveway. A girl and a boy jumped, and the bus drove on. In their matching school uniforms, the children looked almost identical, but the boy was a little taller and the girl's hair was a little longer. They meandered up the driveway and romped around with their dog until they noticed Roz. A robot, said the girl, running up. It's about time we got one, said the boy. She's refurbished, said the man. She's the cheapest one I could find, but she'll make a decent farmer. What's her name? Said the girl. She said her name's Roz. That's just her starter name, said the boy. We can give her any name we want. Okay, so they said that let's call her Farmbot. That's kind of a weird name to me. I don't know. I kind of like the name Roz, said the girl. Me too, said Mr. Sharif. Let's leave her name as it is Roz. Roz, I'd like you to meet my daughter Jaya and my son Jad. Jaya. I'm confused with this name. This name. Okay, you can't see it. Hello, Jaya and Jad. Jaya and Jad. Jaya or Jaya? I don't know. Yeah, Jaya, said the robot. The children looked at each other and smiled. Will Roz take orders from me? Asked Jad. What about me? Asked Jaya. She'll take orders from both of you. Roz, I order you to do my homework, said Jaya. Don't waste her time with nonsense, Mr. Sharif grumbled. Roz is here to do farm work, not homework. Understand? The children nodded. Now I order you kids to bring the dog inside and do your own homework, said Mr. Sharif. I need to show Roz the farm. Chapter 5, The Farm. Mr. Sharif turned and shouted, Come here, Rambler. A moment later, a pickup truck automatically rolled out from the garage. The truck pulled up to the man and the robot, its doors open wide, and they both climbed in. Rambler had a steering wheel, but Mr. Sharif sat back and let the truck drive itself. They followed the driveway, behind the house, across the backyard, past the trees and hedges, and suddenly they were surrounded by farm buildings. The buildings were different sizes and shapes, all white walls with gray roofs, and they were so tightly packed together that could hardly tell where one building ended and the next one began. Some were splattered with mud. Others had holes and loose boards. The entire place smelled like grass and manure. Mr. Sharif pointed out each building to Roz. There was the enormous dairy barn, the milking parlor, the workshop, the machine shed. Smaller sheds were scattered all around. Rambler drove out from the buildings and down the backside of the hill into a wide sweep of farmland. Let's see what's out next. Okay, so we left off at, farmland. A fence lined this part of the driveway, and behind the fence was a sprawling rolling pasture, lush with tall grass and a few leafy trees, where a herd of cows was grazing. The cows swished their tails and chewed their cud and followed the truck with their eyes. One of them let out a long moo. This is Dairy Farm, said Mr. Sharif. So these cows are queens around here. Your whole world now revolves around them. Understand? I understand, said Roz, as she started at a young calf. Sorry, I messed up with started. It was stared at a young calf, okay? Just to let you know. Okay, let's continue. Who was staring right back at her? They rolled past a herd of cows, past clumps of wildflowers, past a quiet pond, past birds and fields of mice and bumblebees. The driveway cut through a row of trees on its way out to the crop fields, which were flat and square and covered with bright green sprouts. Hilltop Farm was bursting with life, but it had seen better days. Patches of weeds and bare dirt were spreading across the fields. Broken down farm machines and piles of junk were strewn across the grounds. Thick tangles of brush were creeping in from the edges of the property. They drove all the way out to the farthest fields, to a little roundabout at the very end of the driveway. Rambler shut off his engine, and the man and the robot sat and looked off the countryside. Far off, where the land met the sky, a train quietly slid along its tracks and disappeared to the north. Then all was still. This farm needs help, said Mr. Sharif. At last, it's been in my family for generations, and I don't want to lose it. But I can't do farm work anymore, not with this bad leg. That's why you're here. They say robots can learn to do almost every kind of job, and you all have to do almost every kind of job on this farm. I understand, said Roz. We have autumn machines for ages, Mr. Sharif said. But we didn't need a robot until my wife died. Those last words hung in the air for a while. The silence was finally broken by a low rumble of thunder. A storm was approaching. Tornado season was still months away, but in the farm country, any storm could become dangerous. Let's go home, said Mr. Sharif. Rambler started its engine and drove back up to the long driveway. By the time they reached the farm buildings, a steady rain was falling, and the cows were in the barn. This is for you, said Mr. Sharif, and he handed it Roz her own computer. Wow, own computer? The control that controls the farm equipment, and it's got all the information you'll need to work here. Do you know how to use a computer? Yes, I know how to use a computer. Roz had never used a computer ever before, but she instinctively knew what to do. Clearly, the robot was designed to work with technology. Study up tonight and start farming tomorrow, said Mr. Sharif. You can stay in the machine shed with the other machines. Perhaps, I would say, in the barn with the cows. Had low battery, 20%. Said Roz. My whole world now revolves around them. The man smirked, and he said, I like the way you think, Roz. Chapter 6. The Monster. The cows were munching hay in their stalls when their big barn door slid open and a mechanical monster stomped in from the rain. The creature marched down the center aisle, her footsteps echoing through the cavernous space, until she found an empty corner, and there she stood in the shadows as the storm began to rage outside. By the way, guys, I got new Lego, so we're gonna do a video about it today, maybe. Okay. Everybody listened as the rain poured and the wind howled and the thunder cracked. By midnight, the storm had blown over, and there was only a gentle sprinkling on the roof. But the herd couldn't rest with that monster lurking in the corner. Cows began quietly mooing to each other. What is that monster doing? She hasn't moved in hours. I bet she's waiting to eat us in our sleep. What? The cows gasped at this horrible thought. And then an old cow named Annabelle tried to calm down the herd. Relax, everyone, she said. There were no monsters like this at my last farm. They never ate any cows. Come to think of it, if they never ate anything at all, if this monster has never eaten anything at all, she must be awfully hungry by now, said a cow named Tess. I saw the farmer driving the monster around his truck, said a calf named Lily. I don't think he would have done that if she were dangerous. Nobody knew quite what to think of the strangest creature in their midst. I think that monster's harmless. I think the monster's unnatural. I think the monster's moving. The herd felt silent as the monster marched out from the shadows and into the middle of the barn. And then the monster did the impossible. She did the unthinkable. She spoke to the cows in the language of the animals. I'm not a monster. I'm a robot. My name is Roz. And I'll tell you guys the retell. It's in the next page. It's gonna start on this page. How she learned how to speak this in her old island. So let's go. Chapter 7. The Robot's Story. It's the story. None of the cows could believe that this monster, this robot, this machine had just spoken to them in the animal language. They stared at her, nervously shifting in their stalls, wondering what she would do next. What Roz did next was simple. She told the truth. She stood in the middle of the barn and shared her story with the herd. I spent my first year of life on a remote, wild island. Roz began. I did not know how I got there. I only knew that I wanted to survive. She wanted to survive. So I studied the island animals to see how they survived. And a surprising thing happened. Their sounds and movements started making sense to me. I was learning the language of the animals even when I could speak to them. The animals wanted nothing to do with me, but that changed when I discovered an orphaned gosling. The poor little thing would have died on its own, so I cared for him and adopted him, my son. His name is Bright Bill. It says Bright Bill, but we say Brightville because it makes more sense. So Brightville. A murmur spread through the herd. When the animals saw me caring for Brightwell, they finally accepted me. I was no longer alone. I had friends and a family and a home. Life was good. Until the Rico robots arrived. They came in their sleek with white airships to take me away. When I resisted, they became violent. The animals defended me. They fought bravely and destroyed the Ricos, but I was badly damaged in the fighting. I needed repairs, and I could not get them on the island. So the animals loaded my broken body into the airship, and it took me far away from my home. Lily, the calf, poked her head through the railing, said, "What about Brightwell?" "My son is smart and tough, and he has a good flock," said Roz. "I think he will be okay without me." "Where were you taken?" said Tess. "I was taken back to the factory where I was made. The factory is run by a crew of robot workers called the Makers. When I arrived, they put me in a room filled with other broken robots, and some robots were completely ruined. And the makers, these are the pictures. This is Brightwell, and this is, I don't know, the broken piece of a robot. Okay, let's read the sentence again. Some robots were completely ruined, and the Makers immediately sent them away. But those with work in computer brains were given a test." "What kind of test?" said Lily. "The Makers simply asked us a question. They asked us how we had become damaged. They asked us how we would respond to different emergencies. They asked us to identify certain sounds and smells and objects. Robots who answered every question correctly were repaired. All the others were destroyed." That's kind of sad. "In the wilderness, I camouflaged my body to survive. In the robot factory, I camouflaged my personality to survive. I pretended to be a perfectly normal robot. I did not say that I had adopted a goose, or that I could speak with animals, or that I had resisted the Ricos. I said what I had to say to pass the test, and it worked." "Good for you, Roz," shouted Tess, and the other cow smiled. "The Makers shut me off, and now when I woke, my body was fixed, and I was on this farm. Now, like all of you, I belong to Mr. Sharif." The cow stopped smiling. Everyone was quiet. And then old Annabelle spoke up. "I was taken from my friends and family too." Ooh, that's also sad, clearly. She said, "They're back on the farm where I was born. I still think about them every day. It is difficult to be apart from our loved ones," said the robot. "You know, Roz, things could be worse," said Tess. "At least on this farm, you're still surrounded by nature." "Yes, things could be worse." The robot's eyes brightened a little. "But I am not safe here. If any human ever learns who I really am, they will have me destroyed, and that is why, when the time is right, I'll try to escape." That's why it's called The Wild Robot Escapes. This is why it's called The Wild Robot Escapes. Because this one is The Wild Robot Protects, so I don't know. It's brand new. It's made in 2023, so it's technically brand new. Okay. Chapter 8, The Computer. Inside the barn, the lights were low. The sounds were hushed. The night slowly were on. A few cows were chewing hay, but most were resting peacefully. Our robot had returned to her corner. The soft glow of the computer screen lit up her face as she studied farming. She learned about the herd, about the pasture and the fields, about the native plants and wildlife, about the season and the climate and the weather, and about machines, and the buildings and the fences and the tools and all the diary equipment. Every detail was perfectly remembered in the robot's computer brain. And in a single night, Roz became a farmer. Wow, a single night. Well, because she's a robot, so she has a computer brain, so she can remember everything. Because she's really smart, because she has a computer brain. Okay, at dawn, The cows began to stir. One by one, they walked out the side door, across the muddy barnyard, and into the parlor for a quick milking before heading down the pasture. They followed the same routine every morning like clockwork. However, this morning the cows were joined by a robot. With her computer brain fully of farming knowledge, Roz was ready for her first day on the job. She stomped through the tall, wet grass, and her head slowly turned as she scanned the scenery. The sun was rising, the fog was lifting, the cows were grazing, and the whole world seemed to flip upside down. Here are the cows, just the same. A picture of the cows. The 4 cows. But there's more. Before Roz knew what was happening, she was on her back looking up at the sky. A strong stench filled the air. A robot had slipped on a cow dung. The herd erupted into laughter. Tess called out, "Welcome to Hilltop Farm, Roz," which brought another round of snort and moos. Okay, let's continue. I just had a quick break. I don't know, my dad called me, so let's go. "You'll have to get used to cow patties and to laughter," said old Annabelle, strolling over. Not much happens around here, so we're always eager to laugh." "I understand," said Roz. "I like laughing too." And she forced out an awkward ha ha ha. Then the robot stood up, whipped her feet, and continued to exploring the farm. But she was more careful to watch where she stepped. The fields and buildings and fences were all in need of Roz's attention, but her most urgent task was to fix the broken farm machines. The herding machine was designed to roll through the pasture and look after the cows while they grazed, but it had gotten stuck in the mud and was becoming a popular hangout for birds. Well, true. Almost every single thing that's broken is popular hangout for birds, mostly. The field machine was gigantic, like a house on wheels. It was designed to roam the fields, planting and fertilizing and harvesting the feed crops. But it had ground to halt weeks ago, and that was now just collecting dust in the far corner of the property. The drone was a small flying machine with a special camera attached to its underside. It was designed to fly above the farm and keep an eye on the whole place, but it came crashing down when a mob of crows attacked it in a flight. Other broken machines were hidden within clumps of weeds, and still more were waiting for repairs in the shed. The peaceful morning was suddenly jolted by the sounds of power tools as Roz began fixing the machines. Well, she got quickly ready to work. Thanks to her robotic strength and smarts, she made excellent progress, and that's good. The hours flew by, the machines rumbled back to life, and the farm began buzzing with activity. We're almost at chapter 10, where we're going to leave off. At sunset, Rambler came bouncing down the driveway with the Sharifs in the front and Oscar at the back. "How's it going, Roz?" said Mr. Sharif, leaning out his window. The children giggled and waved from their seats. The dogs sniffed the breeze. It is going well," said Roz in a robotic voice. "Many of the machines are working again." "I see that." Mr. Sharif gazed up at the drone circling high overhead. "We thought we'd come out and check on you, but it looks like you're doing fine, so we'll stay out of your way. Keep up the good work, Roz." As the truck started rolling up the driveway, Oscar looked back at Roz and barked, "You smell like cow patties." He was right. The robot was filthy, and she was finished her first day as a farmer by scrubbing herself with soap and water. Thank you for watching. This is only the part. In the night, I couldn't sleep, so I read the book and I left off at page 76, which is, it said 73. And I was on chapter The Shop. Right here. chapter, you can't see. I'll just turn my camera around to show you. Here it is. Chapter 28, and we're just on chapter 10. That's 18 chapters away. So, anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Hope you see you in our next video. Bye, everyone. Hope you have a great day.